So this next conversation, in a sense, is quite close to my heart because it is about human connections. We've spoken a lot about, perhaps even some would say, the more intellectual side of investing, whether it's the human capital, whether it's systems structure, whether it's logistics and manufacturing processes and so on. This conversation is still very much about investing, but investing in people. I'm not going to have that conversation, of course, by myself. So please give a very, very warm welcome to Sir Paul Foster, who's the President and CEO of Global Esports Federation, as well as the co-founder and executive chair of World Technology Group. Marc Ganis is the founder and executive managing partner at Sportscorp, and Faris Mustafa Al-Kooheji is the Secretary General of the Bahrain Olympic Committee. Gentlemen, please take your seats. Okay. This morning, I got a WhatsApp message to tell me that one of my guests was no longer just a guest, he was a Sir guest. So please, many congratulations, because Paul Foster is now been knighted, and you are now Sir Paul Foster. So, Sir, happy joy, people. Thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations.
Thank you.
It's terribly exciting, not just because I think it is so important, but also it's great when the work that you do inspires recognition, because it means that you are impacting lives and changing lives. And that really is what this conversation is about. When we're looking at people and consumers, increasingly everything that we want to do is about experiences. So perhaps if I can begin on this end of the room with you, Faris. When we are talking about experiences, I want an experience every time I have a sip of coffee. I want an experience when I'm in my car. I want an experience when I'm taking a... It's almost as if everything must be an experience, but that has a consequence, right? How are you thinking about it from your chair when you're thinking about how do you emphasize your competitive advantage?
Okay, let me give you an example. Let's use the new sport, SailGP. Traditional sailing before was not spectator friendly, where the user didn't have a good experience. So the sailboat used to just go away and then you can't see anything, versus making the right hospitality boxes so that people can have the best experiences. Now, why is it important? Because you can't expect the sponsors to pay the big money, right, if they don't have a good experience. Right? You need to understand your stakeholders. The spectators, sponsors, they have to have a good time. So in the end, SailGP did it. They restructured traditional sailing to make it more a better experience and monetize it much better.
Paul, Sir Paul. I can't help it, I'm too excited. Okay, my son used to be a gamer. So I spent many hours as trying to be a good mum and watching. But in reality, when he and his console are gaming, there's not much for me to watch, right? I'm watching him getting excited. But when I look at what has happened in that space now, the audiences are increasingly huge. What has the question of experience meant to how you tailor the offering, particularly in the environments where you operate?
Well, I'm sure you're a very great mom, so thank you, Tumi. And I think that what your son probably didn't share with you is on the other side of the screen was 400, 500, or 600 friends that he was actually communicating with, perhaps learning a new language, perhaps learning a new culture, perhaps at our organization, we call it World Connected, connecting across the world. So there's many stories we can share about that. But one of the great things in esports, of course, gaming in esports represents a youth demographic largely of 4 billion gamers around the world. And our organization is across 180 countries, but also represents 22 traditional sports. So one of the beautiful things that we're able to think about is that in every single market, we can really customize the experience for that market. You know, one of the things that we talked about with Marc and Faris as well was that we have the opportunity in certain markets to have the very large-scale stadium events, but we also have the opportunities to have leagues and tournaments in much smaller scale. Our community is always the first adopters of technology. We're always first, whether it's telephony. And what's interesting in the market is it's going from large scale to very small to mobile gaming. And so that's when it's going to go from our current 4 billion gamers, $600 billion industry per year by 2030 forecast. You'll just see it grow and grow and grow. So the option to personalize and customize in market.
That's actually quite incredible. So Marc, when you are thinking about where to take sports, not just sport as a specific sport, but you have to look more holistically and say, okay, these are different disciplines that attract audiences that want slightly different things. How do we tailor and structure the offering, not just to keep them engaged, but ensure that they also are sort of continuing to participate and engage outside of that particular moment?
Never forget what the basis of sports interest is: passion and participation. Passion for the teams that you follow. Many people have that passion from when they're a child, when they went to go see a team that they went with their parents, maybe when they were 6 years old and stayed with them for the rest of their lives, and they passed it on to their children. It may be that they have a passion for a sport that they played when they were a child, or they picked up later in life. Participation. They may have become very good at a sport. They may have participated in a sport with their friends. And it doesn't necessarily have to be organized participation. It could be something that you played with your mates, and it's something that you enjoyed. It could be esports, it could be football, it could be tennis, it could be golf, anything like that. So always keep in mind passion and participation. If you keep those two P's in mind, that's where you look at for investment, that's where you look at for activation, that's where you look at for facilities. Everything else, literally every other aspect associated with the sports economy has its foundation in those two, passion and participation.
Certainly, well, passion, participation, and the people, right? Because it's also about how, even if the passion does not arrive, you can engender that passion.
Sure.
by their participation. So if we're thinking, Faris, if I can come back to you, if we're thinking about engendering an exposure, one thing to look at who's engaged already and excited, and just for the record, I'm nowhere near as fit as he is, so please don't judge me. And if you do, we'll have the conversation offline. But you're incredibly fit. So as somebody who participated in sport, you brought the passion. But now the question is, how do you engender that in people who may ordinarily not turn to sport as something that they want to do and participate in as often?
So that's a great question. Annually, we organize something actually called the Baby Olympics. Now, the idea of the Baby Olympics is what? It's to bring the parents, right? Where they let their kids try, like, let's say 7 or 8 different sports. So this is us identifying the baby or the toddler's passion, right? So in a way, we're indirectly trying to convince the parents to let their kids do sports, right? Because a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old is going to tell his parents, hey, I want to play football, or I want to basketball. Maybe they might, right? But this way, they're exposing to 8, 9 different sports. It's a good talent identification, and we're going to discover some passions.
How then, if I am as a parent wanting to bring my kid to the Baby Olympics,
yes.
One thing to say, yes, I want him to be active, but there's a conversation that I need to have with you as well, right? So you having the conversation with my kid and participation and the conversation with me.
Exactly.
To what extent are we seeing sport, engagement, social interaction increasingly at the forefront of people's minds, particularly post-COVID?
So actually, post-COVID, I mean, sports has grown even more.
Yeah.
Sports, I mean, if we look at the media rights, they're bigger than ever. But that's also because people we're improving the experience, coming back to the previous question. But going with the Baby Olympics, we have all the national federations actually there. They're ready to talk to the parents and tell them, listen, your son, based on his build, is good for this sport, or your son is good for that sport, right? So it's all about improving, user experience, which is why sports is actually growing, right? With the technological advancements as well.
But also, I suppose, ensuring that you have a talent pool to draw from as time goes on. When you don't have hundreds and hundreds of millions of people who make up the Bahraini population. So you have to be more focused and targeted in trying to find ways to identify talent.
So in 2022, we launched a campaign to teach 10,000 kids how to swim. Because oddly enough, only half of the country knows how to swim despite us being an island. So with teaching 10,000 kids, we discovered roughly 50 kids who are talented and they learned a life skill. So we have to do these massive campaigns, despite being a small population, to really find that talent.
How do you deal, Sir Paul, how do you deal with this view that when people are gaming, it's not a sport? We recognize it is a sport, but there are those who will argue otherwise because their view is that if it's a sport, it has to be something that requires lifting, moving, running, swimming, that kind of activity. And yet, the engagement levels with esports are high. How do you find that balance?
Well, I think that one of the challenges of life is balance. So I think it's no different in sport. And I think that all of us would encourage young people to stay active and to move. And we signed an agreement with UNESCO in a program called Fit for Life during the Paris Olympic Games. And we encouraged, rather than saying to young people, go and play football or soccer or tennis or something, we encouraged them to move actively 30 minutes per day. That was the argument we said to our community. So I think the first thing I would say that I think that oftentimes our experience has been when you connect with young people is actually giving them the tools by saying, this is an objective I'm going to set. And in fact, we gamified it by making it fun. Wouldn't it be cool if we all moved our body 30 minutes a day? So let's gamify that. And that's something I wanted to talk about, Tumi, which is really gaming and esports is not just an activity. It's a whole methodology of communication. It's a whole language. It's a whole community. It's a whole business. It's a whole ecosystem. And every single person in this room and across the world is going to be actively involved in that. Whether you collect airline miles or hotel miles, or you have your Uber miles, or you have your DoorDash miles, we are gaming. And so the knowledge of that, that's just a reality of what we have. Now, organizations like ours, we believe, have a responsibility to say, we recommend these guidelines. That it's not just a binary thing, I like traditional sport or esports. Young people actually want to do both.
So Marc, when you are looking, we were speaking a little bit earlier about my personal passion sport, which is Formula One, but if we were looking at trying to find that balance between recognizing the human interaction. So in other words, you and me sitting together having coffee, having a conversation versus the sport being the conduit for that relationship. How are you thinking about that in the context of encouraging public-private partnerships so that the growth is more sustainable in the long run?
Well, one of the most important ways that that occurs is in the creation of facilities and in the attraction of events. Right here in Bahrain, they had the foresight to have the first Formula One race in all of the GCC. Now there are 4 races, Formula One races, that occur here in the GCC. They built a purpose-driven circuit to attract Formula One. That is how you can have a public-private partnership. You had Formula One as the private enterprise, the 10 teams that are private operations, but you had the country, the nation, the kingdom, actually build the track, put forth the funding to attract the race, and has done it every year since. So that's a great example of a public-private partnership for a specific annual event. Then you have much more regular activities. You'll have a stadium or an arena that is built. An arena will have 120, 180 events per year. Basketball games, hockey games, things like that, that then will also fill with concerts and family shows. You'll have a football stadium that'll be built partially with in a public-private facility arrangement. And you'll have 20, 30 football matches, and then you'll have concerts and other events. So those are the kinds of public-private partnerships that occur that help create these kinds of events that are recurring. Not just once, not even just once a year, but are consistent. Point being that there are multiple ways. This is another part of the mosaic that creates what a community is. Yes, economic activity, which is obviously very important, but it's part of the mosaic of what makes a community vibrant, why people want to live there, why they want to interact with other people. It's the energy that people have being together and enjoying something together. And that's what sports does at its core. It brings people together.
Very important aspect, in addition to what you say, is the notion of pushing the boundary, right?
Yes.
Everybody now is wanting to participate and do mega events, whether it's football, whether it's cricket, swimming, it almost doesn't matter. Pick a sport. How do you begin the process in the engagements that you have of reimagining almost perpetually how you offer your offering, and make sure that what you're asking is sustainable for both parties?
Yeah, great question. And it's becoming an even more challenging and more expensive question as technology keeps improving, because the at-home experience keeps getting better and better and better. So how do we get people to come and experience these things together physically, as well as wanting to experience them, if they want to, in their homes, wherever their homes might happen to be. And this is where a lot of our attention in our industry is being focused right now, especially with AI. The globalization of sports, the personalization of sports is a very important part of where we're going right now. I'm going to give you one example. If you went to college, you enjoyed, say, American college, and you enjoyed watching football together. We have many people here in the Middle East who did that. Now you separated, but you want to watch those games, and you want to watch them together. Can't really do that yet, but in a couple of years, you're going to be able to. You're going to be able to personalize your viewing through streaming, where you're going to watch the game, and in little boxes, you're going to have the friends that you watch the games with, and you're going to be able to talk to them like you're in the same room. Those are the kinds of digitizations that we're getting to in sports that still is going to keep the communities together and enhance those communities. And that's the globalization, personalization, digitization that we're getting to.
So that was going to be my next question, because at the end of the day, all of this is really about people, right? How do we facilitate? And we began there, and I'd like to revisit that notion. The facilitation of people being people. To what extent is that a significant consideration when you are thinking about how to innovate technology? Because it's very easy to say, oh, but if we make this technology, it'll make things happen faster, it'll be easier, you won't need people to get involved and make a mess of it. Yep. But at the same time, that is what people are buying. So I'd like to hear from all of you how you are thinking about it and how big a part of the consideration it is. Go ahead, Marc.
Well, think about your love of Formula One. The races that you would have gone to just a few years ago, you would have seen one portion of the track and the cars going by one after the other for 50 laps. Now with technology, you can know what's going on everywhere on the track and be able to see it instantaneously. Those are the kinds of innovations that technology will bring, so that you can have the social activity of being together with 50, 100, 500,000 people together, while still being able to see the entirety of what's going on and get all the information and statistics. We have to continue pushing the boundaries so that you can have the combination of the energy of being together with other people while still enjoying the sport. Not let the technology override the personal interaction and the passion, but have it be an integral benefit to the personal interaction.
Such a tricky balance, it sounds like, Paul.
Yeah, one of the things that, it is a tricky balance, but I think it's very, very exciting. And I think the chance that Marc mentions, the customization, and I was interested when he was speaking, because that at-home interaction with real live sport is something that esports and gaming has been born with, right, through Twitch. And we did an event the other day, it was in a really small arena in Rio de Janeiro, and it was 900 people, which is small. We did an event a couple of weeks ago for 6,000 people, but online there was over 900,000 people simultaneously at the exact same time. One of the things that we do, and it's something that I think that we could think about more, that I really enjoy doing, is to stick very close to our young demographic. I genuinely love to go to our events and hang out with the gamers and go and talk to the young people to say what's going on. Tell me what's going on, particularly in the age of social media and the word choices and what's happening and what they want to see, and the integration of celebrity and what we now call, remember we used to call it content creators, now we just call it creators. And so like that whole industry and that whole economy, now if I'm sitting in boardrooms, I may not get access to the best source of knowledge on the planet, which is Gen Z or Gen Alpha, which is saying to me, Paul, you're all wrong, this is where we need to go. And I want that raw, and I want that direct, and I want to know that, and bring them involved. So we've launched a youth council that advises us about that and is part of our board to keep us current on that, and it's one of the things that I get most joy out of.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. Faris?
Well, listen, I mean, we all know that we can see a sport better on TV, right, versus being a spectator. Yet we're going there because of the experience, right, the atmosphere, the energy of everybody. I do know that there are people creating these domes right now that makes you feel as if you're actually in the stadium yourself right now. But unfortunately, I feel this will hit the social skills of the sports, right, because you're only going to be interacting with your friends, versus if you go out there in a stadium, you're going to be mixing with everybody. So that's my concern with technology going a bit too far.
And I can see, I think that would be and I'm sure, Paul, you would agree that that is a very valid concern, which is why it becomes important, the notion of education, right? Education about the impact of what we're doing, both in terms of our physical engagement, but also the incorporation of technology in terms of our physicality. Oh gosh, okay, 2 minutes, we've got 2 minutes left. So in that 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you to give me your specific action point, if you would, around the creation of experience or the consideration going forward that we can all use as we are experiencing our cars and experiencing our coffee. Just in a way to have that moment of pause, if you follow my meaning. Marc, can I ask you to go first?
I honestly didn't.
Okay, so what I would like for you to share with us, each of you, is what you would like for us to consider when it comes to how we're experiencing our environments going forward from here. So just what you would want us to do as we take those moments of pause.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to see more governments and groups come together as regions rather than as competitors to build facilities so that we don't have too many redundancies, to build organizations so that we don't have too many competitors and redundancies, so that we can expand sport in a way that is more efficient and that we can reach more people. And I would like to not look at technology as being competitive, but I'd like to look at it as being additive as we go forward.
Paul?
Yeah, I like that. I think that there's nothing like live. Our community lives online, but we love coming together. This is my first time to the Kingdom of Bahrain, and I'm reminded, sitting with everyone, how beautiful it is as humans to get together. But it doesn't mean we have to choose one or the other. We can do both. I like what Marc said. We expect government to tell us to guide vision, and we leave it to the private sector to get on with it and deliver unto the vision.
Faris?
I mean, we just hosted, the third Asian Youth Games, which was the biggest sporting event in the history of Bahrain. We had 13,000 dignitaries, right? But this was as well coordination between the government and the private sector. So similar to Marc said, it's very important that there is this dialogue, not just between our government, but between the governments around the region. So we don't do the same thing one after the other. So we distinguish different projects.
I suppose you can say that sport is the tool that is available to us. It's up to us how we choose to use it. Gentlemen, to the three of you, Marc, Paul, Faris, thank you so very much for making the time to join us and, of course, sharing your insights on how we can think differently about sports in terms of technology. I'd like you to extend a warm round of thank you applause to the three of them, if you would, please. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure. It's been a pleasure.